The consistency of declining quality for pro wrestling has been shown at an alarming rate. And one of those is, of course, the lack of heavyweights in the main event scene on AEW. Now, I understand we have had decline of characters so harshly that larger than life characters are somehow not a given in pro wrestling. That it's just if you are a good wrestler that have 5-star matches with very little etchedness or a charismatic, character to make yourself stand out, and only alarm to like a vocal minority of a fan base, you are a good wrestler in the eyes that you're somehow even bigger than Shawn Michaels, even though Shawn Michaels had to carry the company on his back from the mid '90s until the Attitude Era. This guy came from being part of the Rockers into being one of the biggest icons in pro wrestling. And that's stories that can be in a documentary. Not Kenny Omega being a weeaboo over in Japan, killing his own product. And one of those, of course, we're going to transition into Brian Cage. Brian Cage, of course, I've seen this guy back on TNA when he was part of, I'm sorry, was that Gut Check? And he got scaped out for some jobber that didn't even last a week in the company. And then I saw him over on Lucha Underground. Then he was back over on Impact when he was world champion and X Division champion. And the guy has a definable look. He can do stuff in the ring that many other heavyweights couldn't. The guy looks like a star. The guy looks like you can have him as like a grunt or a big bulky bodyguard, hyper athletic. Sure, he needs a mouthpiece, but Taz is the better feeding mouthpiece. He's more of a generic heavyweight or a menacing heel that doesn't need to talk as much and let his actions take on. And then you just forced him over with the FTW title that didn't even do much to elevate over his career, even though he was like the top 10 guys in the main event scene. The first thing AEW do, they put him over for the world title scene, and then you have him squashed over by Moxley to have him taken down over an armbar, over a shoulder injury, and making Taz throw in the towel. How does that make him look like a badass? By the way, that was his first world title match, by the way. And they were trying to go over that he was still nursing injuries over past wrestling events because he was out for a majority of the year. You have him lose consistent pay-per-view matches. The only matches where he looked decent when he was facing up against Darby Allin, Joey Janela, or just guys that are like lesser than him. There's no semblance of parody over with Brian Cage, even though the guy looks like an overall giant hulking machine, and he should be put over as well with Lance Archer, Jake Hagar, and Wardlow as menacing big heavyweights that can do stuff that the lighter weights can, but have more power in them. That should make them more menacing and be more threatening over in the main event scene. Because if you saw Batista doing a 619, I think you would quit wrestling in general to begin with, right? And then you just force him over with the FTW title, make him a jobber over to 60-year-old Sting and Darby Allin. I like Darby Allin, but the guy's a toothpick. While the numbers game was around them, that should be an automatic loss in the stupid cinematic match I had back at Revolution. Then you have Cage losing twice over on pay-per-view title matches, and then you scope him over to the TNT title scene where he still comes over looking like a jobber, and then you inconsistently turn him babyface, forcing respect, and then he's still with Team Taz. What's there for him to accomplish now? He came over from targeting the world champion to facing the one of the biggest legends in the business like Sting. So anything else would be an automatic downgrade, other than I guess an implosion of Team Taz, because I guess they have nothing to do with them. Because if they can't beat old people or a skinny guy over in the storyline where they obviously have the advantage with the amount of heavyweights and numbers game, and you have Taz that's a compelling talker and he's entertaining. He's the most entertaining guy over on commentary that doesn't want to sounds like he killed himself. That's not over the fault of Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross. they've just been in the business a bit longer, especially journalistic wise. Where this is bullshit. Oh yeah, this is kind of bullshit. Tony Khan comes around, give me stupid glasses again. I might controversy. I mean that's how bad it is, and I'm sick and tired of AEW not notarizing that heavyweights can still draw numbers, especially if they're over the top characters. You like even like Beyonce, there is lightweight guys you can make into charismatic figures that can also draw a crowd. Conor McGregor looks like an albino from the projects that come around being a ginger, so we know he automatically has no friends or soul, but he can kick your ass. He comes around being chauvinistic. Oh, he's a trash talker, and he's a major draw for pay-per-views, even if he comes losing. You need characters like that. UFC benefits off that a dime a dozen times. Even when nobody cares about most of the pay-per-views, whenever it comes to a big controversy or a controversial figure or a guy with major charisma, that draws in the numbers, and people know this. So, or at least a larger than life guy. You think anybody would care about fat ass Chuck Liddell still losing on pay per view while Brock Lesnar was making a scene in the UFC winning the heavyweight title? No, they cared about Brock Lesnar. The same way we should care about Brian Cage, Lance Archer, and Jake Hagar, or even the Butcher and Blade. Guys that look like they can kill you, and that draws. I just hope they focus on this because they are burying the hell out of Brian Cage. I don't even care what they have for them over this point. Even Lance Archer, even if he comes up killing Sting, the only benefactor is, he beat an old person. And it's not like he beat it out of a prime guy, but he beat a legend. He beat literally an old person. And it kind of just sticks to me as well. Like one time, shout out to the Sorb Show. Shout out to the guy that was there. Over the recent watch along of their review of Raw, there was this guy that was complaining that Goldberg shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. First of all, what makes you in the world say that in the first place? Because if you remember Goldberg and the stuff he accomplished over with his winning streak, the world title scene, the money that he got for WCW over the short lifespan of the late '90s, and still his hype factor to still be in movies, MMA, drawing numbers for Raw, WCW, and pay per view, the guy deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. The guy is still a top figure today for drawing numbers for WWE, and this guy's pushing 50s. I mean, pushing 60. Nobody else could be like the only reason you would watch a pay per view, all because he does 20 moves in a suicide dive every move. That's not what builds up new fans. That's not what builds up fun matches. You don't have to make a match over 15-minute yawn fest of suicide dives, super kicks, and false finishes. Everybody should know this, and if they did, and if it would, WWE would be dying right now. But people cared about seeing Brock Lesnar, Goldberg, Undertaker, guys that don't do that stuff, and they're still like highly respected and the biggest draws in the company. And now one of them is retired. One doesn't even want to deal with most of the midgets, and the other guy is too old to work. You saw that match he had at the Rumble with Drew McIntyre for the world title back January? That was atrocious. But this brings up the factor that heavyweights still have a major source of drawing power, and the more AEW actually learns from this, other than live on Dynamite, Tony Khan, the more they would actually be more tempted from outside fans or even like old school wrestlers and the wrestling fans themselves that okay, we can see potential off AEW. Stop it with the weeaboo Japanese girls and other midgets like main eventing. Like last week on Dynamite, it was John Silver versus Darby Allin. And Darby Allin come around doing a dumbass suicide dive where he messed up his big ass shoulder that's possibly bigger than his whole torso. And the match wasn't even that great. It was just combo move, barely any selling factor other than they foreshadow that John Silver knows a way how to escape the the coffin drop, and that wasn't even the bigger selling point into the match because they don't focus on the match. They don't focus on what's the sole purpose of the match, or at least what's the bigger threat into the match. Because like I remember, like at least back then, like whenever you have to do when people wanted to evade the super kick, they would hold the kick, work on the leg, we try to restrict any semblance of movement or Michaels trying to attempt to do the super kick without focusing on his knee so he can get an opening. That was a match. That was smart off the opponent to throw the opponent off so he can get a better chance of winning. That's what makes that's what makes Michaels finally getting that super kick, or at least finding another way to win, more satisfying. Whoever comes off winning. And I'm just astonished just what AEW thinks is actually going to draw over viewers, even though you guys average 600 to 700,000 viewers consistently. And if that's what you think is going to make TNT keep your asses on television, I think you should be calling that the freaking GTS championship and the TNT title, seeing how long you guys are going to stay on live television forever. That's just my opinion. How you guys feel about Brian Cage's direction on AEW? Thanks for watching it. No, I got a bit sidetracked, but the way AEW is trying to like image their show, it's really sporadic and it's really bad. Thanks for watching.